안녕하세요. 첫 패널의 사회를 맡게 된 손열입니다. 저희 패널이 그 외국 분들이 많이 계시고요. 또 해외에서 줌으로 지금 접속을 하고 계신 분도 계시기 때문에 영어로 진행을 하라는 명을 조금 전에 받았습니다. 그래서 제가 한글로 준비한 것도 급히 영어로 번역을 해라 하면서 진행을 하겠습니다. My name is Sonyal. I teach at Yonsei University and also president of the East Asia Institute, which is a foreign policy think tank in Korea. I am moderating this session, and the title of the session is also the same as the conference's title, Middle Powers, Cybersecurity Statecraft. Middle powers, the concepts are varied. As President Kim Sang-bae just mentioned in his opening remarks, it can be defined as, it has a role definition, and also it means behavioral characteristics, and it is simply regarded as the size of the country, of the economic and military power, depending on your interest. Actually, middle power can be defined, I think, and so. Today's session, the speakers, as I read their papers, use the concept of middle powers in various ways, and I think that's okay for our session. Middle powers, as Professor Kim just mentioned, that are the countries that are very active in cybersecurity areas. In the case of cyber defense, and also they want to secure robust cyber resilience, and typically play an active role in international collaboration, and often take the role as a leader in the international forum. And I think that is because middle powers, as we discussed today, there are roughly five middle powers: South Korea, Australia, Israel, Poland, and Ukraine. All are active, and also many of them are having a developed and sophisticated technology in the field. And also middle powers are located in a very turbulent space, turbulent region, South Korea in Northeast Asia, where peninsula is divided, and we see confrontation of four big powers. And Australia, neighbor of the Southeast Asia, where United States and China are increasing their strategic rivalry. And Israel, not to mention, and Ukraine, of course, and Poland, in also in a very difficult place. And at the same time, the old papers mention that in a conventional security environment, they are there, but also in cybersecurity, they are also facing major powers, cyber powers in United States, Russia, and China. So in both cases, we see that increasing overlap of material space and also cyberspace, nexus of material and cyberspace security competition and conflict, and where the all speakers also mentioned that middle powers tend to have an advantage in this cyberspace as they develop their own technologies and networks. So, today it is going to be a very interesting discussion, particularly because some of the countries that we discuss are in war. We will discuss not only individual countries' statecraft and their strategies, but also international relations and their foreign policy aspects as well. So we have about 2 hours for discussion, but already we are behind, a little bit behind the schedule. So I would like to, have, individual presenters for about 15 minutes to talk, and commentators for 10 minutes. And before moving on to individual presentation, let me just briefly introduce to you our speakers. Not all speakers are present today. One of the speakers is online. And our first speaker on my right is Dr. Fitriani from Australian Strategic Policy Institute. So she will mainly talk about Australia's statecraft. And then, Dr. Alina Shymanska. She is originally from Ukraine, and she is now a postdoc fellow at Seoul National University. We'll discuss Eastern European countries, many focusing on Ukraine and Poland. The last but not least, Professor Tae-Eun Seung from Korean National Diplomatic Academy. She will discuss South Korea's statecraft. And on my left, we have 4 designated discussants, and designation in this order. First of all, Mr. Seung Shin. He is a fellow at Seoul National University. And next is Dr. Seho Jang from Institute for National Security Strategy. And then Professor Kangsuk Kim, who is teaching at Hankuk University of Foreign Studies. And the far left, Professor Hackyoung, who is a professor at Korea National Defense University. We have already spent 10 minutes, so let me get directly to our first speaker, please.
Thank you, Professor Soo-yeon, for your kind introduction. Thank you for Korea Association of Cybersecurity Studies and the National Intelligence Service for kindly having me. Today I will discuss Australia and ASEAN, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations in the cyber domain, as an example of a middle power approach to statecraft. So I will start by saying what is Australia approach, and why, as a middle power, Australia focus on the region that is around it, which is the Pacific Island, as well as Southeast Asia, in sharing and influencing in the cyber domain. And let me begin. First, I will come to the definition of the middle power. There are 3 theoretical perspectives to approach what does middle power mean. The first one is hierarchical approach, which categorize state measuring its objective capability, assertive position, and recognized status in the world. And it ranks states according to economic, military, social metrics, and currently cybersecurity power. That which one is greater and which one are not. The second one is functional. To what extent that middle power can assert its influence in international and political affairs in the world in specific areas based on their relative capabilities, interests, and degrees of involvement. And today we will look at cyber capacity. The third approach is behavioral approach, where a middle power country exhibit a certain type of foreign policy behavior. The first one is advocating for compromise and seeking for multilateral solution. This is because middle power understand that it cannot go alone. Different with major power that actually believe that they can do it alone. Middle power usually rallies and cooperates better with countries in the world because they know the strength comes in number. And for Australia sees increasingly wider cyber threats landscape with the Internet of Things and the turn of geopolitical situation, especially with the unchecked tension between China and the US, escalating in the gray zone conflict or hybrid threats that is in maritime influence operation as well as in cyber security that influence the physical conflicts such as the Taiwan Strait, the standoff in South China Sea, as well as we see the situation in the Korean Peninsula that we're currently is sitting here. And it is quite critical and most challenging and complex, the cyberspace, where we have not only the target that's government installation and military critical infrastructure, but also private entities, banking, energies companies, university database, as Australian university database have experienced several hacking issues and leaking of personal information. As well as distributed denial of service attack that cripple financial institution as well as telecommunication service, such as Optus hacking in Australia. As such, Australian government actually really aware of the condition in the Asia-Pacific, where it has become the most targeted region in the world, accounting for 25% of incident. That is after Europe, 31%, and North America, 27%. This data actually a report from 2023, but I type it wrong, it's 2020, but it's actually 2023. Whereby it's actually shown how the targeted areas are manufacturer, finance, and professional service. So having that threat report actually compelled Australia to issue Australia's Cybersecurity Strategy 2023 to 2030. Where it actually would like to become one of the leaders in the world in the cyberspace. And it does so by having investing the money to where it wants. This cybersecurity strategy actually having the budget over almost 600 million Australian dollar. This is on top of its existing Australian government 2.3 billion budget on existing cyber initiative under Red Spice, whereby the government actually provides not only protection to its citizen and business, but also providing offensive cyber capability that from this current until next year will be implemented by the Australia Signal Directorate and Australian Police Force. So the country would have offensive cyber capabilities. So Australia is open to announce to the world that it have offensive cyber capabilities, but it use it only as a force of good. For example, it's open to say that when addressing the ISIS terrorists, it use cyber operation to do so. So this vision is focused on 6 layers. The first is strong business and citizen, safe technology that Australia have incorporated its international standard as its own, world-class threat sharing and blocking using that program that I mentioned, implemented by the Australian Signal Directorate and the police force. Protected critical infrastructure by renewing its law on critical infrastructure, sovereign capabilities of domestic cybersecurities, and the last one is resilient region and global leadership by working together with countries in the region to create an open and safe cyberspace. So when a country would like to have a strong cyber capacity, it has to be able to invest money where it needed. So with the amount listed there, the amount is actually been useful because, for example, the cyber rapid teams actually deployed August this year to address the Pacific Island Forum hacking. Australia is part of the Pacific Island Forum Association, where the headquarters was under cyber attack by China. And the cyber rapid team was deployed to actually investigate, and currently the investigation is happening. But however, we know that the countries in the region, the Pacific Island, are quite fragile because they were under Chinese influence, so they are unable to say that the incident is coming from China, and therefore they're quite worried to conduct attribution. But as Australia are quite open, I think the ABC, Australian Broadcasting Company, already announced the attack, and the investigation is ongoing. The third point is the partnership with Southeast Asia, which I will explore more, where Australia invests 4.5 million to enhance cyber defense with Southeast Asian partners. And I will share why Southeast Asia is a target for Australia. Because as a middle power is usually a major power in its region. And for Australia, it is already a major power in the Pacific Island, because Australia is one of the biggest countries in Pacific Island. Meanwhile, in ASEAN, in Southeast Asia, Australia is a neighbor and a dialogue partner. And we see from the ambition of Australia as a middle power, it would like to be a regional and global leader to influence a regional forum of the ASEAN Regional Forum and Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation. It does so by providing capacity building program and help in the incident response team. Australia also does that, following the law that perhaps my colleague from Queensland University will explore later on the international law on how Australia can pursue its role as a middle power, because it knows that it cannot do alone. So why is Southeast Asia important for Australia? Because the capability and capacity in Southeast Asia are very varied. There are countries that has well-established cyber power, such as Malaysia, Singapore. Meanwhile, we see also countries with very limited cyber readiness, such as Cambodia, Laos, and Myanmar. And we know Myanmar currently is having an internal conflict, and it hosts, along with Cambodia, a cyber scam compound, whereby many of Australian has been the target of that cyber and information operation using several countries in Southeast Asia as proxy. As such, Australia is committed to put money where the demand is, and ASEAN countries say that to come to Australia. Can you help us with capacity building and help us to establish ASEAN CERT, Computer Emergency Response Team? It's already established this year, but it will be start to operate probably end of this year or starting of next year. So I think I only have limited time. Okay, so maybe I will go, because you already have the slides in your proceeding. I would close by what does Australia wants in Indo-Pacific. Australia wants that everybody play according to the norm, and the norm is set by the UN progress of open-ended working group and group of government expert on cyber norm. And regionally, through ASEAN, Australia is working together with the regional organization to set the standard for countries in ASEAN to actually able to implement its cybersecurity. We see how does this country would like to be brought up by Australia middle power cyber resilience through creating more permanent forums, and we also bring ASEAN country to the table, including by this year, having Australia and ASEAN special summit to actually talk about enhancing agreement on intelligence sharing. That's for my presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fitriani. She talked about Australians' statecraft, and to me that there are two characteristics I gather. One is she emphasized so-called the whole of nation approach. That it is not just whole of government, but you need the closer network with the private sector, which is the key to cybersecurity strategy. And also Australia is very active, as she said. Australia has an ambitious goal, thriving for a world leader in cyber security, and in that sense, very much emphasis on international leadership in collaboration, particularly focusing on Southeast Asia. We'll hear more from our discussants about Australian strategy. Our next is Dr. Shymanska. She'll talk about Eastern Europe case.
Thank you, Professor Sanyol. I am Alina Shymanska, and I was born in Ukraine, and I have lived in Ukraine for 20 years, and then I came to Korea for my studies. And now, since I received my PhD this year, I'm very proud and I'm very thankful for having me in this room, in this conference. And today I'm going to present about digital statecraft of Eastern European countries. And especially I will focus, of course, on the example of Ukraine, but also I will use the example of Poland. First, we will talk about the geopolitics of Eastern Europe, because many people usually have different opinions of what countries do indeed represent Eastern Europe. Some people say that, oh, Ukraine, Belarus, and Russia are the only Eastern European countries, and other people say like differently. So indeed, there are there is a big variety of what Eastern Europe is exactly. But to say no more that Eastern Europe is actually a very strong platform of geopolitical competition between Germany and Russia. So for the last 20th century, Russia and Germany were in a very competitive relationship, and as a buffer zone, they decided to create these Eastern European countries that would be, as it said, buffer zone between them. So Eastern Europe is basically usually defined as those countries that are located east to the Germany and west to Russia. And from north to south, usually they are defined as from Finland to the north and to Ukraine or to Turkey to the south. So it's a pretty big number of countries over there. And as already mentioned, in 20th century, when after the First World War, Germany was already very annoyed with Russian Empire, and they decided to create this buffer zone to weaken Russia. And after the First World War, they decided to create the concept of Mitteleuropa, they're called in German. I'm very sorry for my German pronunciation. So Mitteleuropa was actually defined, as I already said, from Germany to Russia, and it included like Finland, Ukraine, 3 Baltic states, Poland, and so on and so forth. But also after the Second World War, actually Soviet Union got very powerful, very strong, and Germany was no more able to fight with the Soviets. But at the same time, there was a very big division after the Second World War between the Soviets and between the NATO. So despite those were the allied powers with the West and the Soviet Union against the Nazi Germany, after the war, they decided to have this geopolitical competition, and this geopolitical competition actually was buffer zoned by the Eastern Europe. So after the Iron Curtain was created, those countries that were the parts of the Warsaw Bloc, like Poland, Hungary, Czech Republic, like Slovakia, Bulgaria, no today's, and also those countries like Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Belarus, Ukraine, and Moldova that were actually the parts of the USSR and that were west to Russia, they are usually decided as Eastern Europe. So as you can see, Eastern Europe is a very big zone, and often, eventually, Finland is also can be seen in Eastern Europe because, as you already know, Finland had this treaty with the USSR that resulted in Finland's Finlandization and neutrality. So it was somehow allied to the USSR as well. So for this region, as you can see, these Eastern European countries, they were very disturbed geopolitically. But what happened after the Cold War? When the Iron Curtain fell and the Cold War was stopped and the USSR dissolved, all those small countries in Eastern Europe, they were so eager to get to NATO. They were so scared of Russia. So actually in '93, already Ukraine's President Kravchuk, he made exclamation that it would be nice if Ukraine entered NATO, and on that part, they promised even to give up their nuclear weapons that they inherited from the USSR. And also many other countries like Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, in '93, they already proclaimed that they want to become NATO countries. But at the same time, in '90s, Russia was not eager to lose those countries to the West. So now Russia was claiming that, oh, it's not okay if those countries are going to NATO because they are actually originally under the Russian sphere of influence, and Russia must always be in control of those Eastern European countries, because that's the way of how Russia imagines the world order. So in order to stop those countries from entering NATO, Russia since 90s has usually opted to those powers like economic power of pressure in those countries, or using military power, like for example in case of Moldova in 93, Russia sent those Russian troops to support separatists in Transnistria, and they have this frozen conflict in Transnistria region in Moldova at this moment, so it holds Moldova back from entering NATO and EU. So those various resource power applied in diplomatic means by Russia to coerce those European countries from entering NATO and from entering European Union, or from somehow like losing relations with Russia, is actually can be seen as great power statecraft, as coercion, right? In the words of David Baldwin, who is the father of economic statecraft theory. But also it happened that in the beginning of 2000, everybody knows that it was the boom of those ICT and IT technologies, and many countries started to imply those ICT and IT technologies into their governance. They started to create digital governance, they started to rule, not to rule, but to get the data about their citizens, about their people, about their public services through those digital means. And Russia started to apply those cyber attack means on the critical infrastructure of the Eastern European governments. And as it can be seen, the first such attack was happening in Estonia in 2007. It was the first instance of Russian digital statecraft against the Eastern European countries, and it happened 3 years after Estonia entered NATO. So actually, it can be seen as a kind of digital form of retaliation towards Estonia. But it's not only Russia that is very coercing in Eastern European countries. As you can see on this map is showing with those yellow booming signs, it's showing countries that are most prone to cyber attacks in Eastern Europe. And while making this map, I was taking sources from Council of Foreign Affairs. They have a very beautiful data called Cyber Tracker. So I checked some data from the Cyber Tracker, and I made some list of countries that were mostly coerced by Russia by digital means, and you can see those are Ukraine, Finland, Poland, those all Eastern European countries, but also Germany and UK. Well, but also China is started to actually have a very very assertive digital infrastructure development projects in Eastern Europe. So those diplomats from China, they usually started to create, for example, 60+1 or Digital Silk Road, those projects that would on one hand technical those digital, the Eastern European countries to build their digital infrastructure, but it was said that the technical standards would be Chinese. And as you already know, the United States is having many doubts with those 5G technical standards of China, of this Huawei situation. So on one hand, the Eastern European countries are bombarded by Russia with cyber attacks. On the other hand, they have China who is asking them or asserting them to have Chinese infrastructure built in these countries. And on the other hand, they are having clean network. And the United States who is saying, oh, no, please do not take those Chinese standards, please deny them, please become the clean network participant. So we can see that there are different kinds of digital expansionism of China, digital reactionism of the United States, and digital militarism of Russia taking place in the Eastern Europe. But how those Eastern European countries respond, how do they state for themselves? That was the topic of my PhD dissertation. And I was taking the 4 countries and comparing them, such countries as Finland, Estonia, Warsaw, and Ukraine. And I wanted to show how those countries suffered from Russia, how they wanted to deter Russia, how they wanted to give influence to NATO so that NATO could help them deter Russia. And this it's what I call the digital statecraft of middle powers in the Eastern Europe. So today I did also Estonia and Finland, but today I will turn more to Poland and Ukraine. So in case of, it's also important to note that my research was doing in 4 stages, and those stages were took from Michel Calon's actor network theory. So the first stage was, it's not that Poland and Ukraine are attacked by Russia. It's only their problem, right? But those Poland and Ukraine, they must convince NATO and they must convince other participants. So how do they convince? So I took this strategy from actor network theory by Michel Calon, who is saying that the first point would be finding structural holes in security environment so that other actors would be interested to cooperate and telling them, oh, there is a problem, so let's fix it together and you also will benefit from it. The second one is interessement. It's the Michel Calon's word from French, and in English it means interposition. And Michel Calon is trying to show that how it's made in like diplomatic process in some kind of regional or multilateral arena. And the third one is identifying threats or countries that should be avoided from the process. And finally, setting a standard or creating a norm. So let's start from Poland. So as you can see, Poland was pretty much bombarded by Russia starting from 2014 because it was very supportive of Ukraine getting to NATO. And because of being supportive of Ukraine, it was pretty much offended by Russia's hackers. So what Poland decided to do? Poland couldn't just stand and say, oh, help me. Poland decided to go this way. They found the Atlantic Council's report calling Completing Europe, which is saying that because Eastern Europe was under communist control, they are less developed than Western Europe, and not just in transportation and energy sense, but also in digital sense. So because there is such a big Eastern Europe, Western European divide in digitalization and in case of cybersecurity, Poland said that, okay, all the Eastern European countries should create some kind of digital standards and improve infrastructure, and let's ask United States to build infrastructure for us. And because of this, the 3Cs initiative was adopted. This initiative consists of all those countries in Eastern European. Sometimes Ukraine fits in, sometimes not, but I found this map, and it has all those participants from Finland and Romania and 3 Baltic countries, and they are trying to create the 3Cs digital highway, which will be a very, very secure, a very strong and resistant digital infrastructure across the region. Yes, so that's how they decided to do inter-assessment, and they said that everyone will benefit from it, right? And they identified strengths as Russia in their Digital 3 Initiative cooperation report, but also they identified China, because everybody knows that during Trump administration, China actually was selected as the major adversary of the United States. So eventually the standard was set, and on the part of Poland, all the countries from Digital 3Cs initiative, they entered clean network from the United States, and United States at the Congress, they decided to support this project financially and technically, but unfortunately, since 2022, in February, the Ukrainian war, the project is on hold. In case of Ukraine, Ukraine is the most bombarded country by Russia in the world, and Ukraine started to convince people in this way. Oh, look, there is petavirus. Oh, look, there is some viruses that are targeting Ukraine, but they do not target only Ukraine. They target everyone. They target NATO as well, because this cyberspace doesn't have borders, so those viruses are spreading. So please help us. So because of this, Ukraine they asked NATO to help, but it seems that because Ukraine is not actually a NATO member, NATO cannot fully fund Ukraine directly, so Ukraine created a kind of diplomatic multilateral process where it convinces some of the NATO countries that are most friendly to Ukraine, for example, Romania, Lithuania, Estonia, those NATO countries, to provide a trust fund for Ukraine. So since 2014, Ukraine had two trust funds. The one was to secure Ukrainian citizens' civilian infrastructure from Russia's cyber attacks, and another one was to secure military one. And those trust funds, they were going for 30 months. And during that time, Ukraine actually developed a very strong resilience to the Russian cyber attacks. And during that time, even those offensive cyber capabilities that Ukraine is possessing right now were created thanks to those projects. And also starting from 2023, Ukraine is conducting a talent mechanism where Ukraine, together with Estonia, are finding another partners that could help Ukraine to fight against Russian cybersecurity offenses. So, of course, Russia is identified as threats in both the Polish project and Ukrainian project, but it happened that Polish statecraft was more strong because Poland made it to adopt all those Eastern European countries' standard. Of course, it wasn't Polish original standard. It was like standard from the United States, and Poland just brought it to the Eastern Europe like broker. But thanks to adopting those clean network standard in Eastern Europe through the Poland's brokership, it happened that Poland did actually survived as a middle power in cybersecurity sphere. And the Polish digital statecraft can be seen very successful. On the other hand, Ukraine didn't actually adopt some kind of standard in NATO, but it adopted NATO standard to herself. So maybe Ukraine is not that successful in becoming middle power, but it's successful in growing those resource power to be resilient against Russia's attack. So that's my presentation, and I will be happy to receive questions until all the participants are finished with presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Shymanska. She dealt with Ukraine and Poland, and her presentation point out the geopolitical situation. Two countries are situated in a clash of three big powers, great powers: Russia, China, and United States. There, she mentioned the cyber offensive, and because of that, primary goals of these two countries are largely defensive, and invest is important for individual countries, but at the moment, at the same time, two countries really focus stresses multilateral processes because they need collective defense against Russian cyber attack, and she discusses many aspects of multilateral approach to the cyber security.
Okay, thank you, Professor Seung. I'm Tae-Eun Seung, assistant. I'm so delighted to be here to address cybersecurity policy of South Korea, which has been dramatically changing recently, and share my thoughts with the cybersecurity experts from the like-minded democratic countries with high-profile cybersecurity capability. Actually, in my title, I did not use the word middle power because South Korea and especially Australia are not middle power in terms of cyber national power, I think. So we are the major powers in this area of cybersecurity. Okay. My presentation consists of 4 parts. First, I will quickly touch a current cybersecurity environment that ultimately contributes to the fundamental changes of cybersecurity policy of South Korea, which is the second part of my presentation. And thirdly, I will also discuss what South Korea has to decide in order to fully use its offensive cyber power. And lastly, I'd like to suggest several agendas for South Korean government for cybersecurity cooperation that I want my government to pursue as its Indo-Pacific strategy. As you see from this slide, today's cybersecurity environment is going through dramatic changes because of two main variables. First, international politics, and second, development of technology. First of all, because of today's increased cyber threat is a geopolitical and geo-economic competition between different political blocs. Also, Russia-Ukraine war and war in the Middle East have severely affected global cybersecurity because these two wars were accompanied by severe cyber warfare, which also has activated hacktivism and serious cyber crimes. Secondly, the problem of cyber inequity, the technology gap between developed and developing countries is rapidly widening, and hackers of poor cyber capabilities get the help of AI and generative AI in searching their targetable attacks and vulnerabilities of the target system, which means that AI can design and automate their cyber attacks. So therefore, small and medium-sized enterprise with poor cyber capabilities are easy victims of such high-tech cyber attacks. These two situations are terribly weakening resilience of the entire cyber ecosystem. Then who are the attackers, or what countries are the origins of cyber threats? Recently, University of Oxford and UNSW Canberra, that's a university located in Australia, jointly worked together and published World Cybercrime Index. And they call it cybercrime, but in terms of war between Russia and Ukraine and war in the Middle East, actually it's the cyber threat, we can say. As you see from this slide, the number one is Russia, and second is Ukraine. And third is China, and the fourth is the US. This ranking obviously shows how severe the level of cyber warfare between Russia and Ukraine, and I'm sure that Ukraine will become a cyber superpower after this war, I think. Iran is number 11, and Israel is 16, which shows also the severity of cyber warfare in the Middle East, but it's a little bit lower than that of East Europe. North Korea is number 7, which also shows how intense North Korea's attacks are. Actually, in cyberspace, 2 Koreas are at war. So here, one thing is really noticeable. Except India, there is no democratic attackers in the Indo-Pacific region. South Korea, Japan, and Australia, we are not really interested in attacks from this slide, as you see. So rather, our cyber capabilities are focused on defense. So we do not have global level hacker groups in our territory. Obviously, as you see from this slide is from Microsoft. If you look at each region, the number 1 target of cyber attacks are Ukraine in Europe, Israel in the Middle East, and North Korea, and North Africa, and Korea in Asia Pacific. So most of attacks on South Korea is from North Korea. However, number 1 country who gets most of DDoS attacks and ransomware and malware attacks is the US. And recently, the biggest target of North Korean cyber attack is the US, not South Korea right now. As you see from this slide, today, malware attacks is old school method of attack. Now, RAS, ransomware as a service, or cybercrime as a service is getting popular. Operators, they sell their attack software in dark web. And hacker groups can purchase such kind of software packages whenever they want. So this means, do you want to attack? We can buy such a crime service from the dark web. So this situation is severely affecting cybercrime ecosystem. So which is much more destructive because of increased scale and speed of entire cyber attacks. Okay. One of the first notable thing in our new national cybersecurity strategy announced in the beginning of this year was our emphasis of a political identity as a liberal democracy that supports values of freedom, human rights, the rule of law in cyberspace that authoritarianism regimes do not like. So also this new strategy, like other cyber powers, shows our willingness to play a greater role for global cyber security. Our new cybersecurity basic plan was issued last month, and I'd like to highlight the fact that this plan proclaims to accomplish 100 action plans by 14 ministries. This is truly whole government approach, maybe not a nation, whole nation approach, but among all of the plans, offensive defense stands out because in the previous government, we do not have such a concept or expression of offense. So this means in the past, we do not take any countermeasures against North Korea's cyber attacks. So also this plan states our willingness to tackle state-sponsored disinformation campaign and influence operations. And this is our government's very significant first statement that our cybersecurity policy includes the agenda of fighting against disinformation campaign as a cybersecurity issue. I think this is a very smart approach because today, all of this disinformation campaign is conducted in cyberspace by using AI. So this is obviously a cybersecurity and technology issue. In general, we all know that active defense means hack back, right? You should be able to hack the device of attacker. But our offensive defense is not yet, the hunt for all type of active defense yet, not yet. South Korean government did not decide whether we will conduct joint operation of a hackback like hunt for all with the US. Time is short and our enemies move fast. So South Korea has very good offensive capabilities, but this power was not fully used. We are wasting our power. Why? We need a legal and institutional framework for joint operation with the US. So if the benefit of joining exceeds the cost, and if we want trust and full coalition for the same destiny with the US, we have to choose that benefit of joining operation, like a hunt for. As you see from this slide, according to MIT Technology Review, cyber capability of South Korea ranked number 3rd, and Australia is the number 1 country here. And according to Lowy Institute, they measure South Korea's cyber capability at number 4. So we have very good cyber capabilities. And the Belfast Center of Harvard University, they gave us a little bit lower score. In 2022, we ranked number 7. This is not showing that actually, you cannot find in South Korea in 2020, but this is not showing that our capabilities suddenly developed. This means our power was actually hidden and veiled. But our ability was unveiled when, in a series of joint bilateral and multinational cyber exercise with other countries like US, UK, Netherlands, and NATO, many other countries recently. As you see from this slide, South Korea, we have offensive capability, but we have not, we don't really have that intention of using that power in the past, but it will be changing in the future. In the Pacific region, South Korea is the #1 democratic country with highest cyber capability, but in contrast, Australia has more intention to use its power. This is why Australia gets higher score than South Korea has. So this means intention to use cyber power is very, very important when we measure the cyber capability of a specific country. If you look at this slide closely, most of Indo-Pacific democratic countries have not really used their destructive cyber power. I think this is a serious problem when we face all of destructive challenges coming from China, North Korea, and Russia. I feel threatened by the size of China and Russia. If you look at this, their size is really, really big. And this picture gives us messages of why we like-minded countries should cooperate and fight together. So I'm gonna skip this slide because already Dr. Fitriani explained this. My last slide, I strongly recommend our government to pursue joining hunt for operations with the US, and together with the US develop a signature exercise, let's call it Indo-Pacific Cyber Defense Exercise, in which all of the like-minded democratic countries can participate, and also private sectors of South Korea and the US, we need to more actively cooperate for joint operation. Meta, Google, Microsoft are warriors at a cyber front. They are now, I think, a defense industry. So why don't we seek a regularized cyber defense exercise that includes space operations and tackle disinformation campaign and TTX with AUKUS and Quad and among IP4, I have a typing error here, IP4. We together may establish Indo-Pacific Information Fusion Center and Strategic Communication Center. And for joining, for joint efforts of monitoring cyberspace and sharing threat information and joint operation tackling attackers. Thank you for listening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Seung. Yes, she presented South Korea's strategies as statecraft, and also give some advices to the government. And the South Korea she here mentioned that ROK has a significant capabilities on both defensive and offensive side, and the offensive side of power has not been used, and use the term offensive defense as well, and emphasize like Australia, international cooperation and the leadership role as a middle power in the field. Okay, thank you very much. We now we are behind the schedule, obviously. We have about 40 minutes, and we are getting hungry, actually. So My goal is to finish up by 12:30. So let me just adjust our time plan. Within 40 minutes, I would ask individual commentators to speak within 7 minutes, and altogether 24 minutes. And the rest of the 12 minutes, I will spare this time to our presenters to respond, and you will have about 3 minutes. Yes, please.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. As Professor Son kindly introduced, my name is Seung Shin, or just Hugh in short, and I'm a researcher at the Institute of International Studies within Seoul National University, working on the cybersecurity strategies of middle powers, with a particular focus on these Five Eyes nations, including Australia. So I guess that's why I was invited as a discussant for the Dr. Fitriani from the Australian Strategic Policy Institute. Well, before I get on to this discussion, I also would like to thank you, the Korean Association of Cybersecurity Studies and the National Intelligence Service, for organizing today's international conference, and also giving me an opportunity to be part of this meaningful discussion on a very timely and important topic. And of course, thanks to all the other panelists joining here today for your time and insight. Just a huge honor and privilege to be part of this panel. Well, I have to ask for an excuse. Till this morning, I was agonizing whether to have today's discussion in Korean or English, but since I can see now that the most of the audience here is Korean, and we have a great simultaneous interpretation service provided, and I think our interpreter may find it quite daunting and quite difficult to understand my Australian accent. So I will just proceed in Korean if that's okay with other international panelists. 저는 이제 마저 이어서 한국어로 말씀드리겠습니다. 저는 오늘 그 피트리아니 박사님의 발표에 대한 토론을 맡게 됐습니다. 사실 제가 그 호주에서 10대 대부분을 보내기도 했고, 또 학부도 거기서 졸업을 하고 한국에서 돌아왔기 때문에 호주에서 오신 박사님의 토론을 맡게 된 점에 대해서 굉장히 반갑고 또 기쁘게 생각을 하고요. 발표 다시 한번 감사드립니다. 시간 관계상 본론으로 들어가자면 이 박사님께서는 아시아 태평양 지역 사이버 안보 환경, 그리고 중견국으로서의 호주와 아세안의 사이버 안보 전략, 그리고 어떤 정책들, 그리고 그들 간의 어떤 협력의 현황과 그 가능성 굉장히 구체적으로 잘 설명을 해주셨습니다. 그 주어진 시간이 매우 제한적이라서 발표하신 내용 들으면서 갖게 됐던 생각들을 크게 두 가지 그냥 질문을 중심으로 간략하게 말씀드리고 싶은데요. 첫 번째 갖게 된 질문은 스테이트크래프트라고 하는 것, 즉 이 책략이 뭔가라고 하는 겁니다. 준비해주신 발표 제목에서도 스테이트크래프트가 등장을 하고 오늘 이 컨퍼런스의 큰 팀도 스테이트크래프트가 들어가는데 이 과연 책략이라는 게 뭔가 하는 질문에 아직 합의된 답이 존재하지는 않는 것 같습니다. 혹자는 그란드 스트래티지라고 하는 대전략, 그리고 섹터럴 폴리시라고 하는 그 정책 분야에서의 정책, 이 사이의 개념 정도로 사용하시는 분도 계실 테고, 또 어떤 분들은 그 집권 정당의 어떤 성향이나 집권 시기와 상관없이 지속적으로 일관적으로 추구되는 어떤 국가 전략을 책략이라고 보시는 분들도 계시고요. 또는 앞서 발표자께서도 중간에 말씀하셨지만 이코노믹 스테이트크래프트처럼 그 특정 분야에서의 수단을 동원을 해서 대외 전략의 목표를 달성하는 이런 시도로서 책략을 이해하시는 분들도 계시고, 또 피트리아니 박사님께서는 호주에서 오셨기 때문에 아실지도 모르겠습니다만 호주 국제정치학자분들 중에서는 이 책략이라는 걸 전략 문화, 그러니까 strategic culture라고 하는 좀 더 넓은 광의의 개념에서 이해하시는 분들도 계시는 걸로 아는데요. 다만 저는 오늘 박사님께서 호주의 사이버 안보 전략을 설명하시면서 언급하셨던 그 whole of nation approach라고 하는 이 개념, 예컨대 국가적 통합 접근이라고도 할 수 있겠고, 또는 범정부적인 접근이라고도 할 수 있는 이런 게 책략의 개념을 설명하는 데 가장 적합하지 않나라고 생각했습니다. 그러니까 다시 말해 책략이라고 하는 건 이제 국익을 위해서 군사나 경제나 외교나 정보, 문화 이런 다양한 영역에서의 어떤 수단과 행위자들을 동원을 함과 동시에 정부와 민간의 협력이 강화되고 또 응축되어서 기존에는 어떤 특정 기관 차원에서 전개되던 사이버 안보 대응의 전략이 이제는 범정부적이고 국가적인 차원의 어떤 통합 대응, 확장이 되어지는 시도로서 이 책략을 우리가 이해해야 되지 않은가라고 생각을 하고요. 이제 이런 관점에서 보면 결국 우리가 중견국의 사이버 안보 전략을 책략의 관점에서 좀 더 명확히 분석을 하려면 결국 전략이 수행되는 어떤 체계와 방식 이런 것들을 이해하는 게 중요할 수밖에 없겠다 생각합니다. 뭐 앞서 여러 가지 말씀들을 해주셨는데 그러니까 어떤 이니셔티브라든지 어떤 정책이라든지 이런 것들이 추진되고 있는지를 살펴보는 것도 굉장히 중요하지만 이제 그걸 한 단계 넘어서서 이제 국가 내부적으로 어떤 정부 부처와 기관이 컨트롤 타워나 실무 주관 기관의 위치에서 그 전략을 주도하고 있는지 또는 그 정부 부처와 어떤 기관 간의 공조 관계는 어떠하고 나아가 또 어떤 부처나 기관이 가장 선두에 서서 국제 협력을 선도하고 있는지 이제 이런 것들을 우리가 명확히 이해를 해야만 특정 중견국의 사이버 안보 전략 그리고 또 중견국 간의 어떤 협력의 가능성 이제 이런 것들을 좀 더 명확히 분석할 수 있지 않을까 싶습니다. 아마 이 부분은 세 번째 세션에서 그 퀸즐랜드 대학에서 오신 라이언 코 교수님의 발표문에서도 어느 정도 다뤄질 거라고 생각을 하고요. 그래서 기대가 되는 부분입니다. 당장 호주의 전략은 피트리아니 박사님께서 말씀하신 것처럼 책략의 성격을 가진다고 저는 보고요. 뭐 현재 호주 정부가 추진하고 있는 다양한 어떤 이니셔티브라든지 발표문에서 언급하셨던 뭐 Six Cyber Shields 같은 그런 정책들, 목표들 이런 것들 역시 그 국가적 통합 대응의 맥락에서 추구되는 것으로 이해를 할 수 있을 것 같습니다. 다만 아세안은 이제 연합체이기 때문에 뭐 이런 정도의 어떤 논의가 조금 적용이 안 될 수도 있겠다는 생각이 들고요. 그 두 번째 질문은 시간 관계상 간략히 말씀드리면 저는 호주와 아세안이 아직까지 그 사이버 안보 분야에서의 규칙 기반 질서의 입장을 같이 하고 있다고 보지 않습니다. 이제 아세안은 뭐 레토리컬하게는 규칙 기반 질서를 옹호한다고는 하는데 여기서 말하는 이 규칙이 호주나 서방 국가들이 말하는 규칙과는 상당히 거리가 있기도 하고 그래서 뭐 자유주의 국제 질서, 민주주의, 뭐 멀티 스테이크홀더리즘이라고 하는 다중이해 당사자주의나 개방성 이런 원칙에 기초한 서방의 가치와 아세안 국가들이 말하는 가치는 좀 다르지 않나. 심지어 아세안 내부에서도 여전히 어떤 위계적이고 정부 간 협의체적인 어떤 그런 거버넌스의 형태에서 사이버 안보 원칙이나 규칙을 선호하는 국가들도 있기 때문에 이런 것들을 극복하지 않고서는 호주와 아세안 간의 협력 가능성이 상당히 아무랄 것까지는 아니더라도 어려울 수 있겠다라는 생각이 들어서 이 부분에 대해서 우리가 계속 지속해서 논의를 해야 될 부분이 있다고 생각합니다. 그럼 이 정도로 말씀 마치도록 하겠습니다. 감사합니다.
네, 감사합니다. 저기 그 세 분께서는 그 감사 말씀 이런 거 다 아시니까 그거 안 하시고 그냥 바로 그 코멘트로 들어가 주시기 바랍니다. 시간이 없어요.
안녕하십니까? 국가안보전략연구원의 장세호입니다. 사회자께서 감사 인사 하면 안 된다고 말씀하셔가지고 본론으로 바로 들어가겠습니다. 저는 알리나 슈만스카 박사님에 대해서 토론을 좀 진행할 계획이고요. 개인적으로 박사님은 오늘 처음 뵙는데 사실은 또 박사님 글을 그동안 몇 편 읽어가지고 그렇게 낯설게 느껴지지는 않는 것 같습니다. 또 슈만스카 박사님이 이 신흥안보 분야의 신진학자로서 특유의 통찰력 있는 글들을 많이 써주셨고 또 벌써부터 한국학계에 많이 기여하고 계시고 앞으로의 전도가 굉장히 유망한 그런 연구자로 저도 생각하고 있습니다. 오늘 폴란드와 우크라이나 사례로 동유럽의 디지털 국가 책략에 관한 흥미로운 발표를 해주셔서 대단히 감사하다는 말씀드립니다. 슈만스카 박사님의 오늘 발표는 향후 본격적인 동유럽의 디지털 국가 책략 연구를 위한 어떤 출발점 같은 그런 인상을 저는 오늘 받았고요. 또 박사님께서 지적하신 것처럼 이 동유럽 지역이 여전히 전통 지정학은 물론이고 이 디지털 지정학의 관점에서 볼 때도 글로벌 웨스트와 이스트가 경쟁하고 있는 지역이며 또 이들 국가 책략, 특히 러시아의 국가 책략의 여러 변형에 굉장히 취약한 지역이라는데 저도 적극적으로 동의합니다. 그리고 오늘 폴란드와 우크라이나 사례를 통해서 러시아가 이 두 국가에 대해서 어떤 사이버 공격의 양태를 보이고 있는지, 어떤 사례들이 있는지, 그리고 이 두 국가가 국가 책략의 이반을 위해서 위협을 어떻게 식별하고 또 표준을 어떻게 설정하고 있는지 하는 부분에 대해서 설명을 잘 해주셨습니다. 저는 이제 박사님의 주요 주장에 대해서 대부분 동의하고 연구의 발전을 위해서 한 세 가지 정도 제언이자 질문을 드리고 싶은데요. 첫 번째 이야기는 신승유 선생님하고 거의 비슷한 이야기입니다. 제가 봤을 때 이제 다른 발표들과 다르게 슈만스카 박사님께서는 이 다른 발표들이 이제 사이버 안보 국가 책략이라는 제목들을 대부분 갖고 있는데 디지털 국가 책략이라고 하는 제목을 붙이셨어요. 제가 이해할 때 디지털이라는 개념이 이 사이버보다는 상위 개념이고 또 광의의 개념일 것 같습니다. 그래서 만약 박사님께서 이 디지털 국가 책략을 논의하신다면은 이 폴란드와 우크라이나의 어떤 그런 여러 가지 예방, 대응, 복구 전략 같은 것들을 좀 포괄적으로 다루시면 어떨까 하는 그런 생각이 들었고, 또 이 발전 전략하고 국가 책략이라고 하는 개념적인 차이에도 우리가 또 유의해야 할 것 같습니다. 저도 이제 아까 말씀하셨던 것처럼 국가 책략이라고 하는 개념 자체가 굉장히 학술적으로 엄밀하게 정의가 되어 있지 않기 때문에 어떻게 해야 할까 좀 고민이 많이 되었었는데, 제가 볼 때는 이 우리가 일반적으로 이야기하는 국가 발전 전략과 국가 책략이라고 하는 것은 이 자아와 타자의 방점을 어디 둘 것이냐, 또는 자아와 타자 사이의 관계를 어떻게 설정할 것이냐 하는 문제에 좀 초점을 맞춰야 하지 않을까 그런 생각이 들더라고요. 이를테면 어떤 국가의 발전 전략을 논의할 때는 타자보다는 나, 자아, 그러니까 특정 국가 스스로의 발전 비전, 그리고 그것을 달성하기 위한 전략 자체가 이제 초점이 맞춰져야 할 것 같고요. 반대로 어떤 국가의 국가 책략을 논의한다고 하면 강대국의 입장에서는 자기가 달성하려고 하는 비전을 타국에게 어떻게 설득하거나 강압할 것인가와 관련한 여러 가지 기술들일 테고, 중견국이나 약소국의 경우에는 이런 강대국들의 국가 책략에 어떻게 이제 효과적으로 대응할 것이냐, 이를테면은 그들의 국가 책략을 억제하거나 제압하거나 반격하거나 경우에 따라서는 그들의 국가 책략을 활용하거나 편승하는 이제 이런 일련의 기술들 또는 전략들 자체를 국가 책략으로 우리가 설명해야 하지 않을까, 저는 그런 생각을 하면서 이 발표를 들었습니다. 또 이제 박사님께서 만약에 폴란드와 우크라이나 이런 맥락에서 볼 때 박사님께서 폴란드와 우크라이나의 어떤 디지털 발전 전략을 논의하시려면 이 국가들의 어떤 법적 기반의 구축 문제라든지 정보 인프라의 구축, 디지털 기술의 개발 문제, 또 교육 프로그램의 개발과 인재 양성, 또 정보 보안, 사이버 안보, 디지털 행정, 뭐 디지털 범죄 예방, 뭐 이런 다양한 문제들을 포괄적으로 다루셔야 할 것 같고, 또 이와는 달리 폴란드와 우크라이나의 디지털 국가 책략을 논의하신다면은 일단 타자, 그러니까 러시아나 중국의 디지털 강압의 여러 가지 목적, 그리고 주체, 대상, 수단들 같은 거를 일별을 하시고 이것에 대응하기 위한 이 두 국가의 법, 제도, 인프라, 기술, 국제협력 이런 어떤 대응 정책들을 좀 소개하신다면 훨씬 더 체계적이지 않을까 그런 생각을 하게 되었습니다. 그리고 이제 기왕에 하나 말씀을 드리자면 전체적인 발표 내용이 사이버 안보에 초점이 맞춰져 있더라고요. 그러니까 굳이 디지털 국가 책략이라고 하는 큰 덩어리를 설정해 버리면 논의에 좀 초점이 좀 좁혀지지 않을 수 있으니까 오히려 사이버 안보 쪽에 초점을 맞추시는 게 어떨까 하는 그런 제안을 드리고, 두 번째 이야기는 이 분석 사례 선별에 대해서 조금 더 구체성을 띄면 좋겠다 하는 생각이 들었습니다. 물론 발표 때 어느 정도 설명을 해주셨는데요. 제가 볼 때 이 다수의 동유럽 국가 가운데 왜 폴란드와 우크라이나 사례에 주목하시는지, 그리고 이 사례를 통해 규명하시려고 하는 분석적인 관심, 연구 질문이 무엇인지 하는 문제를 조금 더 정연하게 이야기를 하신다면 훨씬 더 설득력이 있겠다. 마지막으로는 이제 이 연구의 좀 상황 업데이트, 데이터의 업데이트가 좀 필요하다고 보는데, 일단 현재의 연구는 2000년대 중반부터 우크라이나 전쟁 발발 이전까지가 조금 많이 되어 있는 것 같아요. 그런데 아시다시피 2022년 발발한 우크라이나 전쟁은 이른바 사이버 안보 또는 사이버전의 관점에서도 굉장히 지금 생생한 사례이자 최근 사례인 것 같습니다. 그래서 이런 사례들을 향후 연구의 본격화 과정에서 좀 풍부하게 담아내신다고 한다면 연구의 가치가 더욱더 높아지지 않을까. 앞으로 큰 성취를 기대한다는 말씀드리면서 토론 마치겠습니다.
네, 고맙습니다. Thank you. And you will speak to.
Yes. I'm Kangsuk. I'm assistant professor of Hankuk University Foreign Studies. I'd like to thank you, Professor Shpiro, for your insightful presentations. It was particularly impressive to me because your presentation sought to draw implications from the real world case study in the ongoing Gaza conflict. In terms of AI cyber technologies in the military domains. So I intend to focus my presentation on raising some questions related to this. Firstly, the experience of Israel's border security failure, you mentioned so-called Seoul system was totally fall apart in this conflict. So in preventing Hamas's attack on Israel, due to over-reliance on AI and cyber technologies, this kind of episode indicates that AI may find it difficult to fully replace human elements in the security sector. So however, like given the rapid progress of AI technology, and now is in early stages of AI development, so do you believe that given this kind of technology progress, it will ever be possible for AI to fully replace the human role in the military sector? If so, what are the broader implications? That's the first. I'd like to listen your opinion. Secondly, you point out that the fragmentation and concerns over dual use technologies adopted by private companies are negatively impacting the militarization of AI in the case of the ongoing Gaza war. So in relation to this, I know there is a boom in AI and cyber developments in the whole Middle East region. Countries like Saudi Arabia, UAE are investing substantial money in establishing AI industry. For example, you know, like the G42 is led by the National Security Advisor UAE, Sheikh Tae-Eun bin Zayed. He is very active in making progress in AI field. A lot of Middle Eastern authoritarian regimes are like castrating so-called state-owned companies like G42, and so it seems plausible that the authoritarian states in the Middle East, like UAE, is focused on large-scale investment through state-owned enterprises, may find it much easier to militarize AI because due to the absence of fragmentation and the concern of dual-use purposes, the private sector you mentioned. So I'd like to listen your perspective on this kind of thought. Thirdly, Israel is reportedly, news media nowadays talked about the so-called establish of so-called Cyberdome in the Israeli government. Netanyahu is currently emphasizing Cyberdomes. So it is reminiscent of Iron Dome is to counterattack ballistic missile, but now the focus is changing into the cybersecurity threat from Iran and its allies. So since suffering cyber attack by Israel on the nuclear facilities in Iran in 2010 Stuxnet incident, the Iran has significantly strengthened its cyber security strengths, posing an increasing threat maybe to Israel. In response, Israel now talking about additional defense system like Cyberdome. This kind of series of actions seems to suggest the start of so-called some arms race inside of cyber field. I'm not sure, so I'd like to hear your opinion on whether arms race of indeed emerging in the fields of AI and cyber technology in the Middle East, in the region. So, and then finally, you really talk about North Korea's corporations and supporting in the developing missiles in Hamas and Hezbollah. So actually, I visited in the Israel in this turbulent year during the summer. Actually, I've been to the Alma Center in the very close with the border with Hezbollah, just 11 kilometers. That's very focusing on the Hezbollah. I saw the pictures presented by the representative for Alma Center, which signals the image of how similar the North Korean tunnel and the Hezbollah tunnels. So maybe the Israeli government and the scholars are very suspicious of cooperation between Hezbollah and the North Korea in developing this kind of right. So given the Israeli academia's concerns of this kind of corporations, what kind of lessons can South Korea draw from Israel's ongoing conflict dealing with Iran and its allies to counter possibly cyber threats from North Korea? Just if you have any idea, just please feel free to share your opinion. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Actually, I prepared the discussion in English, but the presenter is Korean and most of the audiences are Korean, so I'm going to discuss in Korean. 송태현 교수님 정말 한국의 사이버 시큐리티 전략에 대해서 잘 알 수 있게 잘 보여주셨고, 특히나 한국의 사이버 안보 전략이 디펜시브에서 오펜시브로 전환됐다는 그런 것들은 되게 중요한 포인트인 것 같습니다. 그래서 거기 모든 그 거버먼트 레코멘데이션에 다 동의하고 거기에 몇 가지 좀 더하고자 합니다. 첫 번째로는 제시해 준 것 같이 미국의 헌트포드 훈련에 저희가 좀 참가해야 된다는 말을 좀 드리고 싶습니다. 그 미국의 사이버 커맨드에서 가지고 있는 퍼시스턴트 인게이지먼트 스트래티지나 디펜스 포워드 오퍼레이셔널 컨셉을 가지고 미국의 영역 미국의 테리토리 밖에서 다른 영역에서의 사이버 디펜스를 하는 개념입니다. 그래서 여러 국가와 지금 진행을 중하고 있는데, 특히나 한국에서도 똑같은 개념의 훈련을 하고 싶어 합니다. 근데 이것이 되게 방어적인 훈련이다 보니까 그 나라에서 요청하지 않으면 실시를 할 수 없습니다. 그래서 미국에서는 지금 한국에 계속 헌트 포워드 훈련을 한국에서 하는 거를 미국에 요청해 달라고 요청을 하고 있습니다. 그래서 우리 한국도 미국에게 헌트 포워드 훈련에 해달라고 요청을 함으로써 한국에서 하는 것이 중요하고 또 해야 된다라고 생각을 하지만, 이 같이 훈련은 사이버 시큐리티 훈련이 다 그렇지만 이거를 하게 되면 저희가 가지고 있는 네트워크를 그쪽에 다 알려줘야 됩니다. 소위 우리가 더티밤이라고 하는 그 사이버 위폰, 사이버 시큐리티 위폰 같은 경우에는 평시에 그 루트를 전부 다 네트워크를 전부 다 알고 저희가 그것을 사용해야 되는 때가 되면 그 네트워크를 타고 그 사이버 위폰을 사용하는 겁니다. 그래서 저희가 네트워크를 누군가에게 알려줄 때는 상당히 조심해야 되기 때문에 우리가 헌트 포워드 훈련에 참가는 해야 되지만 어느 정도 수준에서 참가해야 될지는 심각한 좀 고민이 좀 필요하다, 그렇게 말씀을 드리고 싶습니다. 그리고 저희가 좀 오펜시브 메저를 사용하고 있느냐, 한국에서 저는 이미 전략적으로 전환이 되긴 했지만 이미 여러 가지 측면에서 오펜시브하게 사이버 시큐리티 메저들이 사용되고 있다라고 좀 말씀을 드리고 싶습니다. 제가 몇 가지 예를 드릴 건데, 그 첫 번째가 이제 레프트 오브 런치 개념입니다. 저희 한국에서 이제 가장 중요한, 안보적으로 중요한 것이 북한의 핵 위협에 대응하는 것이지 않습니까? 그것이 이제 기본적으로 저희가 재래식 무기로 3K라고 하는데 킬체인, KAMD, KMPR로 지금 하고 있는데, 요것에 더해서 북한이 핵무기를 발사하기 이전에 저희가 여러 가지 수단을 통해서 북한의 핵능력을 무력화시키는 개념입니다. 근데 이 개념을 구현하기 위해서 기존에 가지고 있던 재래식 무기를 사용할 수도 있지만 특히나 사이버 케이퍼빌리티를 이용할 수 있기 때문에 이것이 최근에 이제 전략사령부가 최근에 출범을 했는데, 여기서 이제 저희가 북한이 핵무기를 발사하기 이전에 우리의 사이버 능력을 가지고 어떻게 그렇게 무력화할 수 있는가에 대한 능력 개발에 시작을 했습니다. 다른 한 가지는 코그니티브 워페어인데, 지금 진행되고 있는 두 개의 전쟁을 보시면 아시겠지만 이제 인지전 자체는 언컨벤셔널하기보다는 컨벤셔널한 워페어입니다. 그래서 우리나라도 그러한 것을 수행하기 위해서는 지금까지의 개념은 어떻게 했냐면 북한이 우리에게 인지전을 수행하면 그걸 어떻게 대응하는 거였냐는데, 이제는 우리나라도 북한에 대해서 어떻게 하면 인지전을 프로액티브하고 오펜시브하게 사용할 것인가에 대해 관심을 가지고 있다. 그리고 마지막으로 오펜시브하고 디펜시브한 거에 대한 밸런스를 맞춰야 된다는 거를 좀 말씀을 드리고 싶습니다. 오펜시브하게 상대방이 사용하기 전에 사전에 그것을 억제하는 것이 매우 중요한 거긴 하지만 오펜시브한 것이 실패한 다음에는 마지막에 한 번 더 기회가 있습니다. 하지만 저희가 마지막으로 하는 것이 바로 디펜스입니다. 그렇기 때문에 오펜시브도 중요하지만 디펜시브와 오펜시브의 밸런스가 좀 필요하다는 것을 마지막으로 토론을 마치도록 하겠습니다. 이상입니다.
Thank you very much. With those four discussants, we are almost close. As I said before, let me give a few minutes to each presenters to reflect on the comments. Dr. Fitriani,
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Shin from Seoul National University, for your feedback. It is quite important to define what is statecraft. In my presentation, I take it as government maneuver in creating and issuing cybersecurity policy up to 2030 that hopefully is not obsolete, seeing the progress of the world technology currently. And including in the statecraft is how the state collaborating with, for example, Microsoft and Intel to bolster its cybersecurity capability. It actually works with Department Foreign and Trade, DFAT, our MOFA, to work with ASEAN and the Pacific Island to create regional cyber stability, although not all the country in ASEAN and Pacific Island we see eye to eye in terms of systems and values, but that's the nature of international relation that we see. Before I close, I want to welcome Professor Seung's proposal of creating Indo-Pacific Information Fusion Center. I think it is quite interesting because in Australia, we also see increasing disinformation campaign, the foreign information manipulation and interference. Next year, we will have election, and maybe I'll approach you to discuss how we can collaborate on this. Thank you.
I will proceed to answer in Korean. 우리 장세호 연구위원님의 질문 굉장히 저의 완전 너무 맞는 질문이라고 생각합니다. 장세호 연구위원님께서 말씀하신 것처럼 사이버 안보에 대해서 말을 하는데 왜 디지털 국가책략이라고 자꾸 말을 하냐면 정말 말씀하신 것처럼 디지털이란 사이버란 굉장히 섞여 있는 개념이기도 하지만 이 사이버란 디지털이란 또 서로 어떻게 보면 디지털은 좀 약간 경제 개발의 가능성, 발전선 같은 의미로 우리는 자꾸 사용하고 있고 사이버는 약간 안보란 위협, 판호 또는 공격 이런 의미로 자꾸 사용하고 있습니다. 하지만 보시다시피 폴란드 같은 경우에는 이제 디지털 실크로드에 대한 물론 러시아 사이버 안보 공격을 대응하기 위해서 리질리언트 인프라스트럭처 구축의 그런 외교였지만 어떻게 보면 미국이랑 협력하다 보니까 이제 중국의 디지털 개발, 디지털 실크로드 막기 위한 것도 내가 반화웨이 스탠다드 되기도 했기 때문에 디지털 같은 그런 부분이 있어서 그래서 우크라이나 같은 경우에도 사실은 그 나토로부터 많은 게 지원을 받아서 디지털 인프라스트럭처도 개발하는 부분에 있어서 그래서 이게 제가 넓은 의미로는 사이버 여기서는 영역도 있지만 디지털 영역도 있어서 말씀하신 것처럼 국가 발전 전략으로 이렇게 전체 경제적인 그런 스핀오프도 연구가 가능하다고 제가 생각합니다. 그리고 디지털 개발의 문제도 충분히 이 부분에 대해서 앞으로 이 연구에 대해서 다룰 필요가 있고요. 다만 제가 강조하고 싶은 부분은 저의 연구에서 원래 이 디지털 쪽으로는 좀 앞서가는 에스토니아랑 핀란드 하는 그 국가책략의 방법, 그리고 좀 디지털적으로는 좀 디지털 지수가 좀 약간 낮은 우크라이나랑 폴란드 그런 사례를 네 가지를 제가 연구를 했는데, 오늘은요 제가 그 폴란드랑 우크라이나가 어떻게 보면 법적으로 그리고 여러 가지 제도적으로는 디지털 개발에다가 스스로 이렇게 실패를 했는데, 그럼에도 불구하고 어떤 방법으로 이제 디지털 분야에 스테이트크래프트 하고 있는지 그런 부분에 제가 지금 연구를 하고 있고요. 말씀하신 대로는 앞으로 연구가 많은 이제 8존이 필요할 거고요. 그것에 대해서 이제 장세호 연구위원님께 제가 앞으로도 많은 질문이란 부탁을 이제 하도록 하겠습니다. 그 한 코멘트란 질문 주셔서 너무 감사합니다.
Thank you. 고맙습니다. Okay, next.
배하경 교수님께서 너무 재미있는 그 포인트들을 저한테 주셔서 굉장히 유익했습니다. 짧은 시간 동안 그렇게 많은 그 좋은 포인트들을 주셨는데요. 정말 우리가 헌트폴드를 하려면 지금 여러분께서도 당장 아내분이 혹은 남편분이 너의 핸드폰을 보자라고 하면 자신 있게 보여주실 수 있을 분들이 얼마나 있을지 궁금하거든요. 이거는 관계가 나빠서가 아니고, 그러니까 우리 네트워크를 열어주는, 이제 미국에 열어주는 부분을 생각했을 때 어디까지 우리가 보호하고 또 어떤 약점까지는 좀 보여줘도 되는 건지 정말 그 얘기를 미국과 해야 될 것 같고요. 그리고 미국도 우리를 좀 설득을 할 수 있어야 될 거예요. 헌트포워드를 하는 건 좋은데 우리가 구체적으로 얻게 될 이익과 한국이 얻게 될 이익과 우리가 감수해야 되는 손해도 있다라는 것을 미국도 알아야 하기 때문에 이런 부분에 있어서 정말 좀 솔직하게 얘기를 해 나가면서 준비를 해 나갔으면 좋겠고요. 그리고 이제 그 북한에 대한 인지전에 대해서도 말씀하셨는데, 북한의 인터넷이 이 외부 인터넷하고 연결이 되어 있지 않기 때문에 우리가 인터넷 그 주로 사이버 공간을 통해서 수행되는 인지전 수행이 어려우나, 보면 우리들의 모든 그 지휘부에서 얘기하는 성명들에 대해서 일일이 김여정이 다 반응하고 날카롭게 그 반응하는 것들을 보면 우리가 마련할 수 있는 여러 가지 그 메시지 스킬에 따라서 다양한 심리전을 펼칠 수 있겠다. 다양한 정보의 과부하라든지 여러 가지 교란 작전이라든지 북한이 어떤 결정을 해야 될지 헷갈리고 혼란하게 만드는 그런 전략들을 수행할 수 있겠다라는 생각이 들고요. 그리고 우리 그 피트리아니 박사님께서 말씀하신 것처럼 지금 호주와 영국, 인도-퍼시픽 그 내에서도 이제 유럽까지도 같이 스트래터지 커뮤니케이션과 관련된 여러 가지 논의를 하고 싶어하는 것들을 제가 계속 보아오고 있습니다. 그래서 그 부분과 관련해서 함께 노력했을 때 이제 그 더 많은 효과들을 얻을 수 있기 때문에 어떤 한 국가가 이것들을 다 도맡아서 버든을 그 가져가기보다는 같이 일할 수 있는 그런 자리들이 많이 앞으로 있을 것 같고, 벌써 이제 외교부에서도 이런 논의들이 진행이 되고 있기 때문에 굉장히 희망적으로 생각합니다. 이 부분에 있어서 사이버에 대한 부분, 그다음에 인지전에 대한 부분, 역량 공작에 대한 부분들이 다 같이 들어와서 함께 논의할 수 있는 장들이 열리길 바랍니다. 네, 감사합니다.
Thank you very much. We yes, we close, but all of a sudden we have 1 minute left. So yeah, it's almost impossible to sum up and make concluding remarks within a minute. But it seems to me that we covered 5 middle powers. And I might want to sort of categorize the middle powers statecraft in 3 dimensions. One is, if I borrow Tony Blinken's word, invest, compete, and align. Invest in technologies, critical infrastructures. Particularly Southeast Asian, ASEAN countries really need that. So that is well mentioned today. And the second, as in the case of Israel, it's compete, defend, attack, that dimension in such a dire situation. And finally, the online aspect that particularly in the case two, maybe the different case. One, Poland and Ukraine really need collective defense, collective self-defense by aligning with major powers. And the other dimension of align, in the case of Australia and South Korea, it is more broadly defined as middle power diplomacy that convene the powers. I mean, convene the partners and set the rules and norms, and help others to develop their capacities, things like that. So I think 5 case studies will be quite useful for our later discussion today. So with that remarks, let me conclude. Thank you very much for presenters and discussants, and particularly the presenter from Israel at 5 o'clock in the morning. Thank you very much. 대단히 감사합니다. 네, 첫 번째